So, hi and welcome to another podcast. NLP Upskill Your Life with Fintan, Rich, and myself, and we're delighted to be joined by Tony today. Thanks a lot for coming on, Tony.
That's okay, Mark. Thank you all you for inviting me along. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great you're here. We've done some podcasts together before, so it's great to have you on to our new podcast.
Yeah, it sounds brilliant. I was just talking to the guys before coming on, so I think it's a great thing for people. It'll help people, not only just anybody wanting to understand more about this, but also people who are in the industry as well to get different perspectives on it. It's a great thing for them to hear.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Thanks very much. It's going great. Like, I'm sure the lads agree. Like, it's great to start something off and give three of our perspectives on it. So it's really good. Yeah. So we'll probably start the podcast off, Tony. Can you tell the listeners what you do yourself, Tony?
Yes, Mark. I'm a growth mindset coach. So simply, I educate my clients by giving them new tools, processes, procedures put in place to help them both personally and professionally. I do that by empowering them to take control of their own lives. So mostly work with people who suffer from stress, overwhelm, up to burnout as well. Because too many people give themselves a label on what's wrong with them rather than look at the symptoms. So I try and work more with the symptoms so they don't have to deal with that. And so it helps them just to take the first steps towards the next chapter in their lives.
Yeah, that's absolutely great, Tony. Yeah, because I know we've worked together in the past, and I definitely recommend people contact you, like, because your coaching is second to none. So that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate high praise. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, great stuff. And you have a podcast as well on parenting. Do you want to talk a little bit around that?
Yeah, I've got two podcasts. The one is a new one just up. It's called Parental Diaries with Liz and Tony. It came about because a group I was in, and we'd had a lot of questions coming in about parents. And we have a lady that was in the group, Liz, who's fantastic when she deals mostly with children, and I deal mostly with adults. So we thought we'd put our heads together and see if we could help some people. And it just came about then about doing the podcast, trying to get a message out how we can utilize the different modalities that we do. So the techniques that we use to help parents to get a better communication with their children. So it helps them as people to understand why kids act in a certain way. But what was more important is to understand why the parents act a certain way gets the reaction from the child. So a lot of parents don't realize, they think it's the child playing up, but don't realize it's them that's causing that. So it helps to bridge the communication gap between the two.
Sorry, do you mind if I ask you, what do you think are the main areas where parents go wrong, like by following sort of traditional advice?
That's the problem, is there is no traditional advice as such that you can do, because parenting changes as life changes. And that's where the problems came, is if you try and deal with children now, like people say, oh, but this is how it was dealt with when I was a child, this is how I got dealt with. It doesn't work the same way, because life's not the same way. Children are learning things and they're much more open to media than we ever were when we were younger. And that causes a lot of the things, because of that, they're taking so much more in at a younger age than what we'd ever have done. And that's what causes the biggest gap originally. And it's the biggest thing we found is communication can deal with just about any issue you've got if they learn how to talk. And the simplest thing, the first thing that they never seem to be told what to do, is you need to be on the same level. You do not talk down to someone when you do an adult conversation, because if you did that, they will take it the wrong way. If you do it to a child, why would we do the same thing? So why not come down to the conversation with them, get down, and it don't mean necessarily their height, but even that just the language that you use comes down to the way they speak rather than yours. And as soon as you start doing that, you start bridging that gap right away that allows you then to have a relationship with them that they can understand. And the other thing is that people need to look from the inside out. We've always been brought up as indoctrinated from school and college, everything you go through in life is to look how things externally impact us as people. But when you're a parent, the biggest thing that kid's going to learn is about you. How you act, how you react to things, what you say, what you do. So the more that you care about yourself, you can understand yourself, you start passing on those attributes to your child. And that's where a lot of the generation gap things have went wrong, because we're impacted too much with the outside that we put that on the child, and they had difficulty then understanding them and understanding what is life. Bridge that gap, and it's amazing what difference it makes.
Would that, Tony, be helping to break like generational trauma then, if they're looking more internal?
Yeah, because a lot of trauma is, to people get mistaken because they hear these letters, an acronym PTSD or PTS. But what people don't understand is people's interpretation of trauma is something huge. When they talk about children, they talk about abuse, whether it's sexual or whether it's mental abuse, physical abuse. When they talk about adults, they think of things like serious car crashes or somebody in the war, something like that. Trauma is something that can happen every single day, really small things, and it builds up. And something that's small might seem to one of us here can be huge to someone else. And that's the problem, is that we allow things to stay underneath the surface. We have always got things to keep things in. And that's why trauma happens, is because it's like, I'll say people, it's like an old-fashioned kettle. If you imagine a kettle on and you stick the stopper in it, and you just let it boil and boil, eventually that kettle's going to explode. That stopper will come out, everything will come out of it. That's the same as a human being. And if we change the way we communicate with children, change and look at ourselves, you're already dealing with trauma without realising it. You're starting to really deal with it, is getting ready how we don't need to worry so much about the emotions, we just live with the learning. And that's the most important part, is to face all learning. We never should look back and say, we can't look at that, you can't do it. Those learnings make you the human being you are, and they also make the human being that you, children, never look up to. So all you want to do is reduce or take away, alleviate if you can, the emotion from it, but leave all the learning there. And that helps with next generation, learn those skills, how to deal with that trauma, so you start lessening it as you go forward.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant, Tony.
There's a problem as well where people go, your trauma wasn't as bad as my trauma, so they end up in like a trauma Olympics situation.
Yeah, and as we said, is that really no two people the same.
Yeah.
There's never going to have that. Your trauma is never going to be the same as mine. For you, the language you probably understand better for use, and it would be your map of the world. Right? So it's our perspective of what the trauma is. It's the same as, and if you think it back to the simple thing where it's all about thought. The trauma is how the thought is into us and how we look at that, turn it into that emotion, the action in terms of our behaviour. And that behaviour becomes the trauma. It's how we react to that, which goes backwards again, goes back into you being going over and over it. Two people look at that and saying, but mine's is worse than yours, or yours what? It doesn't matter whose is the worst. What matters is how do we deal with it. So even if you could help each other with it, because you can see different perspectives, you're already starting to reduce it just by talking to each other. And you start realising, yeah, your great point, it's not the same. Because when you start using the word in the language, you realise that actually, I don't think that way. Mine's is this. But what you've said might sort of resonate with the other person. It's how they could deal with us the same as they could do with you. And it's just simply because people don't talk enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because getting it back to a point like about what I got out of the your parenting podcast, Tony, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for instance, you kind of one of the sessions I listened to where you got children to kind of get into a routine, which is really good. Like
the morning routine.
The morning routine, where it cuts out all the fuss, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's because when we did some validation, asking people we knew and other ones from groups and that, what was the biggest problem that they have? And it's the start of the day. Because if the day starts well, everything goes well for them. If they don't, it was the way they were feeling, then angry. They start shouting. They shout at the kids to hurry up. They shout at the kids to do things. The kids go to school crying. They get to work and they're already angry. People can see they're stressed and not even started. So they think it's because of the work, but it's not. They're bringing that in. And then because they feel it's because of the work, other people put it onto them. That makes it worse. So they're doubling how they actually feel. So all we said was, if you think of anything as simple as we were talking before we came on, it's all about processes. All you have to do is start the night before, right? And it doesn't take long. You get the kids the night before to get their uniform ready. Now, how long does that take? Hang it up and it's next to their bed. So they get into a routine. When they get up in the morning, they've got an order. Depending on how many kids you've got, they know the order that they'll go down to go and get ready, get showered and get ready. The packed lunches are made up the night before. They're inside the fridge waiting for them the next morning. So all they've got to do is get ready, go downstairs, have their breakfast, they put the packed lunch into the bag, and they're going out. And what that started to do when we got them to do it was the parents started saying about how relaxed they felt just by going out, because they didn't shout and didn't have that stress. And again, you're right, it built a better relationship with them. But what it actually gave them was time. some of the parents said they couldn't believe how much time they felt when they got on to work. They would make themselves a coffee or get settled on the computer and watching everybody else coming in stressed and realising they had already been a fight with the kids this morning and I didn't. So they were telling other people, look, wait a minute, why are you like that? And they told them what to do. So other ones started doing it and said it worked for them. And it was such a simple thing. Just put a process in place, get everybody used to doing it. And if you've got kids that play up, I don't know if you remember, Mark, but the big thing we say to them is having a reward system. In schools now, they're great at giving little certificates to kids who's the best over the week or the most improved or whatever. So we got them to do it with the kids at home. Who's the first one that gets ready in the morning to go out? Who's the first one? Then it's finished their breakfast, brushed their teeth, got ready, stand at the door waiting to get to the car or bus or whatever they've got to go. And they have it. And at the end of each week, they get marked up. And at the end of the month, whoever's the best one in the month gets a prize. So the kids started to compete against each other because kids love competition, but they also, their minds love rigidity. They love routine. So we had the routine in to help the parent, but the wee competition in to help the children. And one of the kids went into school, I think it was the first month we tried that, they went into school telling the teacher and they won an award and it was all great. And then she saw it was most well-behaved kid. So she gave her one as well, because that's why you'd be so good in the classroom, because you're doing it at home. One of the other parents contacted the lady that we'd done it with and actually said, wait a minute, how come your kids can't get school a certificate? Why have we not got one? She made it up at home. She did it on her own computer and made it. So other people went, I want to do that. And again, it just something and it spread. Some simple little routine helped other ones and it just helped them enjoy their day. So it was a great, yeah, that was a really good episode because it really helped.
No, thanks a lot for sharing that. I'm sure that people are listening to this like, oh wow, don't we try this? Like less stress in their lives, you know?
It's the same as anything, that you don't know what you don't know until someone else says there's a different way of doing something. You'll always do the same thing. And if you keep doing the same thing, you know what it's like. We all say you get the same result. It's not you try and change something. That will work for everyone. But if it doesn't, find which parts do work. Then you adapt the rest. You find your own little routines to add into it that makes it work.
Of course, that works for adults as well.
Oh yeah, we need routine as well, so that definitely works for us. Get you up in the morning, make sure you leave in time, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great, Tony. Thanks very much. And how did you get interested yourself in NLP and hypnosis? Where did the journey start for yourself?
Well, the NLP I was just talking before we came on about that. It came by accident. I think it's about 6-7 years ago now, and I worked for a bank and I did a lot of coaching for a bank, coaching managers, and one of them actually asked me how long I've been doing NLP and where did I train? And I didn't know what they were talking about, and I was trying to hide the first and bluff, and I did this, and I went, I'll put my hand up, I'll be honest, I don't even know what NLP stands for, so I don't know what you mean. But when they started talking about some techniques that I was using, I went, no, somebody else had taught me that. So it wasn't quite an NLP technique as such, but it was based on it. And it started to get me intrigued that I liked doing that. And 4 or 5 years ago, an illness on I've had for 11 years, but 4 or 5 years ago it became really debilitating. Before that, I was in the hospital 5, 6, 7 times a year. I had a major operation for 5 years in a row. And it got to the point is that they couldn't do any more operating on me. They're totally inoperable because they'd caused more damage than good. So, and the same day they told me that, they told me I had cancer, which no one had told me about. They caught it 3 months before, but it was caught during an operation and managed to get it all cut out, but I didn't know till that point. And I really struggled with that. And yet I was the person everybody came to me for help. Anyone needed advice, there was something like that would come to me. I was also a mental health first aider as well for the bank as well. So I had to think something that could help me, because when I realised what they were going to put me on, I had to go to a forum and speak to these groups, and it was like, you'll take all this medication, it was morphine, and it was morning down at night. And I started to feel that I wasn't right. I could feel already that something was different. And I said, I can't do this all the time because it's changing me as a person. And then I was told I wouldn't be able to work because of it. And I was like, well, I can't do that. It's never going to work with me. I don't say to everybody this will work, but I tried all different holistic methods. And I say to a lot of people that a lot of them didn't work for me. But hypnosis did. It was self-hypnosis, which you realise all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. But I found routines to do it through a guy who did the NLP, who taught me a couple of things online, and on a weekend thing I went with him, how to keep the pain under control. It isn't away, it's there constantly with me. And yeah, there's some days worse than others. People know it because I can't walk right. Some days it just overtakes everyone. but at least I can control it, and I'm off all that medication. So it got me to say that if I could do that, I could help other people. So last year I left the bank, decided that I wanted to learn NLP properly, not just the way I'd learned. So I went to NLP Scotland and learned a practitioner's course. A few months later, I did the master practitioner. And then at the end of the year, I was asked to go back and coach on a practitioner's, which I loved. And in between that, then I did my diploma in hypnotherapy. And I realized how close the two of them were and how quick you can get change for people. Whereas I think when they gave me a counsellor, how I went for 5 sessions and the counsellor had to give up saying they couldn't help me, CBT couldn't help me. How many other people out there are the exact same that need something now, not a year, 2 years of therapy down the line to get the help? So that's why I set the business up, was to try and help people quicker, because I don't know so much in Ireland, but in Scotland and in England, I think it's very close. It's about a month or two out. A referral for mental health is between 15 months and 2 years to wait to get it. And that's incredible. When I heard that, I was lucky. I worked for a fantastic bank and got me a counsellor the same day. That day when I went into work and they knew something was wrong, they took me into a room and said, right, you know everybody else, you need to go on that phone, speak to them. My manager was brilliant. Straight on the phone, got the counsellor, you need to go home. We need to do some session things to get you. Not everybody has that kind of opportunity. Nobody's got a work that was as good as that. I probably, when I realised that I wouldn't be the same now if it wasn't for the fact how quick, at least they got me to realise what didn't work. Because then I had to go and find what did. Other people don't have that opportunity. And that's why I love what you guys are doing and what you're actually doing with this podcast. I wish I'd something like this 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, when I was struggling, because I wouldn't have got as dark as what I done. I had a breakdown because of it one day. And to doctors, it wasn't a breakdown as such, because it only happened over one day. So it wasn't depression, it was no anxiety. But to me, it was huge, because it had never happened to me before. And I was determined it's never going to happen again. But that's what music doing is, it's such an invaluable thing for people, is getting a message like this out about how much use can help people just by what you do and what information you're giving them.
That's a very powerful story, Tony, and it's great that you got to help other people through what you went through as well.
It is every day when you get someone who comes into you and they think they've got no hope, or they think there's no choice, they think this is all they've got in life. And it's not, people say to me, it must be great when they get everything sorted. That's not my job. My job is to just get them onto the road so they can find where to go. It's to get them on that track. I call myself a guide. That's all I am. I guide someone to where they have to go to. It's up to them to do the work. I can't guarantee them that. What I do say to people is that you have got that choice inside you. You've got the resources you need. It's just someone has to show you how to get them out. And it's like mental health. The term I hate, nobody knows it talks to me. I don't like this term at all, because I don't believe it's correct. 9 times out of 10, when someone who supposedly has a mental health issue is a physiological issue as well as a psychological issue. It's not one. So emotional health would be a better term for it. But because people think it's in your mind, you're treated different. And that's what the ones that come to me is when they realise that it's not only them. That realisation they've not necessarily got a mental health, a mental illness. What they have got is it's a mental health that goes up and down, maybe more than most other people do. They just need a little bit of help with it. Not everybody does, but sometime in their lives, everybody needs something like that. You think of every day, how many people got up on Sunday night and go, I don't want to go to work Monday morning. They start getting down, all their faces, they get into a mood, they call it Monday morning blues. But they get to work, they start talking to their mates or their friends, and they go, oh, what did you do? Weekend, oh, it was great, I did this and that. Suddenly, from someone who's been so down, the mental health is right at the bottom, they shoot straight up because they get that adrenaline surge. That's what happens to everybody. It's just some people need a little bit more help to keep it on more of a level keel than others do.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like that's really, really helpful for anybody, because I suppose everybody listening has that that problem every Monday morning. And
yeah, most people do.
Yeah, and remembering that like things can pick you up during the day, and you know, it can really help people going forward. You know.
Yeah, and that's why I think for me, when you say come on here and listen to you, is that it's so important that people who listen to something like this do something about it. It's not about just listening to what you guys are saying. It's actually taking action on what you say to them. It's going and trying something. Maybe if you give them sort of little techniques to try or to use, go and try and do that. If they're not sure, hopefully you've got someone you put on it, obviously they can contact you to find out a bit more. And if you're not the right person, we were talking about this earlier, point them in the right direction to somebody that can. There's someone out there that can help everyone. You just need to find who the right person is. I'm not the right person for everybody, so we mentioned this earlier, but I am lucky to have a group of people around me that do just about every kind of thing that I can think of, and I've built it up over the last few years to make sure if I can't help someone, I know someone who can. And I know if I'm passionate with them, I trust that person is going to do it because it's my word to say it.
Yeah, that's great.
Do you find with some people it could be more a case of psychoeducation, where they may have a phobia of blood, for argument's sake, and you'd say, right, go away and do a first aid course, and that would then possibly help them get over that? Do you ever find that with anybody like that?
Yeah, no, the analogy is right to try and say to give them something to take away or you can utilize positively that will change their mind on something. But for somebody like for a blood thing with first aid, it's not something really prevalent a lot of time because in the first aid course, they will not see the blood. 9 times out of 10 first aid, they'll talk about it, but you don't physically see it. And for a lot of people, it's the sight, the smell, and the look of something like that can be the problem. So yeah, finding something that they can actually do to go over it. But remember, when you've got a fear, it depends on what the fear is. Is the fear touching the blood? Is the fear that the blood's going to infect them? Is the fear that's there is if they got that, if they get an injury? It's finding what the actual fear is and looking and saying, okay, what do they need to do to get over that fear? What is it? If you could touch that, how would that feel? If you could look at that, what would that feel like to you? And you get them to just look at a different perspective, to look at a different way. A lot of the time we go, I think Mark said me say this before with some people, they go into these great technique things and do it, but the simplest thing is normally the one that works the most. If someone's got that, is getting their language. What is the actual issue? What is it you're really coming for? And the one I say to everybody is, when 9 times when a client comes in, 8 out of 10, that's not the issue they're coming. One they'll tell you when they walk in the door is not what the issue is at all. So I'll give an example. One recently came to me for it, and she's came in because she's got an issue with her husband. They're separated the two of them because they can't talk, they can't stay in the same room. It was affecting the kids. They were arguing all the time. Right? So we sat down, right? All you got to say, describe it. Tell me what that argument looks like. How does it feel to you? What did it look like? And we started talking about it. We said, right, what were you doing at the moment it happens? And you just keep pushing the why. Why do you think it happened? It was because he said something. Right? Why did he say that? Because I said something. So why did you do that? I felt too hot. All right. So why do you think you felt hot? Well, I was having these flushes and it was just annoying me and he was annoying me. And what we realised was there was an actual medical reason behind it. It was nothing to do with the relationship thing. What it was she was going through the menopause, never realised it. So she looked at that and it was because the hot flushes, everything there. And again, a simple thinking about, all we had to say, how can you stop the arguments happening then? And she went, I don't know, wait, think about it. He's arguing back because what you're saying to him, because you're saying he's annoying you. What is he doing to annoy you? She went, nothing really. It's just, he's there. I said, so how can he understand there's a problem? I need to tell him. So she sat there and said, this is what I need to explain, and started doing that. It wasn't that we're going to get back together, but at least for the kids' sake, because they started talking, she explained to him what was wrong, what was going through to him. Oh, I understand now. I didn't know what that was. It's just he kept saying it's my fault, and he said it's not my fault. So it was a bit of like fault and responsibility. Fault is, it was her fault, she's saying, because she was blaming him for something. It's his responsibility how he deals with it, how he reacted to it. That's his responsibility to do it. Because he reacted one way, that's wrong. But what he had to do is to someone say, okay, I appreciate that you think I'm doing it wrong. What is it I'm doing so I don't do it again? That would have been easier than 10, 15 minutes of having doors slamming and people not talking to each other and having to come to see someone like me. So sometimes it's just to look for the simplest thing rather than looking for something big that can change something.
Yeah, that's brilliant because as you say, like there's so much techniques you can use. Like it was actually the next question. What would your favorite kind of techniques in NLP?
How did I know you were going to ask that question, Mark?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, before you say it, for anybody listening, I don't want to get explained, but timeline is not my favourite one, okay? Right, fuck Mark was in.
Yeah.
It's a joke with Mark, whenever you've been on with before, he ever comes in it, timeline was always the thing that come up. I've said before, Mark, to do it, that having a technique or something to use is great. It's just a tool. It's adding that into what you're doing as a whole that makes it. So it's difficult to say what is a perfect technique, because the favorite one to use with people, I said earlier, no two people are the same. I could do one technique with the two people for the exact same reason and get two totally different results. So it's finding what suits that person at that time. And yeah, it's also something that when you do different modalities, like I do NLP and hypnotherapy, you will find that the names or the technique names given in NLP, some people find it because hypnotherapy is more of a descriptive way of doing things, because you talk to the unconscious mind. So they use a more elaborate way of describing something. So for example, say timeline. When you do that, and a lot of hypnotherapists use it, they'll call it time machine, because it's easier for someone's mind to think of a machine that takes them from A to B, or a chair or something, than it is to think of a line that's going to take them. Where does the line go? And it's just, again, it's terminology. It's finding whatever's right for your client. So it can be a combination of techniques for me, probably, rather than one. For most people that I do things with, I would say the first one I would use, for majority of them, would be parts, what we call parts therapy. And to explain that, if anybody watching understands, a simple thing is this or that. A simple way of putting it to people is when someone comes in and says, I've got a problem, and they go, right, what's the problem? Well, sometimes I get really annoyed. I say that lady, sometimes I get really annoyed at them, and sometimes I don't. And they do this with their hands. So you'll see them go, it's this or it's that. So what they're actually telling you before you even start is what you need to go through with them is parts there, because you need to find out what the one reason behind it is. So that's where a lot of things I will start, because that will tell me what I'm actually working with. So if I use that, I get to the bottom of, right, okay, there's an argument going on with them and that's what's causing it. But when I do this together, we start to find, okay, the reason behind it is, well, it's the way she was feeling. It was the heat, it was the flushes are in. That was protecting her. That's what she felt like it was from him, because he was annoying her, and it wasn't. By doing this or that thing, it gave her the one thing on it was, what it actually is the way she's reacting to how she's feeling. So I would say, if you had to say a choice thing, it's probably the one I've used initially the most would be parts.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm sure the lads agree with you as well, because we did a podcast before all around ego states, which is the same kind of modality, if you call it modality. Yeah. Like it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's everything that you do can be so powerful for anyone. Anything that makes change happen for anybody is powerful. Because if they're in one state and you can turn them to something else, especially something for the better, then that's power. That is amazing for that person. And it can change much more than what they realize, because if it changes them, it can change so much things for their family, their friends, their whole circle that they're in. You're not just changing that person, you're changing everyone around about, everybody that's involved with them. And that's an amazing thing. When they realize it, that's the bit I say I love, is the realization when they realize they can change, not when they actually change. It's just the fact that they go, I can do this. That's what I need. That little bit of phones. Most people that know for what we do, it's called the tears. When most times you get it with someone, you'll see a tear coming down, because that's when they realize that they can get help. And the word hope is something that's there.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? Great, yeah. And I just want to ask you, because you did mention on the podcast I had you on before, Tony, which is really interesting, was about metaphors, the way you use metaphors when you're helping people. Would you like to just talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, metaphors for anybody is just a story. Our minds work in such a way that, to understand a simplistic, this isn't real, but a simplistic way of looking at your mind. All right, there's two parts to your mind when you look at it. So you've got the conscious mind and your unconscious mind. The conscious mind is all your logic, your thought processes. The unconscious mind is vast. And if you look scientific, they say we use 5 to 10% of what is your logical brain, and the rest of it is your unconscious brain. So when your unconscious brain is looking at things, it only goes by what you tell it. One example is fear. Right? People fear, and you ask them to describe it. Where is it usually? Stomach, sweat, things that they feel. Okay, now describe anticipation. Two knots in my stomach, or like a washing machine, sweat, and with their hair still coming in. You look at the two of them, you describe the exact same thing that's on it. So what you're trying to find with someone is, what's the story behind that? So metaphors to me is, I do work with someone, we just talked about techniques in you use, and to embed that technique, I will give a little story at the end that the mind can actually understand what they've just done. So the mind will take on board what you say, we look, give it suggestions to how to improve something. We ask permission for it to do that. We ask if it's okay and it's happy with the change. But then just so that it really understands what it is and embed it in, we'll tell a little story. So I don't know if it's the same one or two or but a simple one then that people use is, one is a train journey. So this person was going on and they were having a trouble in their life. They had 5 main bits of their life that were really, really troubling them, all different aspects of it. 3 of them were kids. 1 was the problems with their wife, and the other was their work. So they kept thinking these 5 things, and they thought, I need to get a break, I'm going to get a holiday away. So they couldn't afford to go abroad. They decided just to go and take a train and go up north. So they got all their bags, everything ready, put them all into the train, sat down in the train, and they were thinking about everything they've left behind there and what it would be like. Just, it'd be great for them if they could just be free. And as they looked out, they stopped at one station. And they looked at the station and doing that, it just took them back to thinking about one of them, the kids. Next station, the same, the next station. So all of the 5 stations, they thought about all the 5 things that were happening in their lives. And as when they got off, they still felt that weight. But they had a wee rucksack, just a little rucksack on their back. And that felt good as that saw there. And then they look up and say, I've got all that bleeding luggage to get. So they walk up to the end of the carriage, they take the luggage off, and there's a wee porter standing on the station. And he says, it's okay, put them on here and I'll put them on the trolley for you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bags going to the trolley. That's great. So they go to there and he says, okay, I'm just going up here to catch the connection to go. That's fine. So the guy goes off the train, turns right and goes. But then he looks behind him and the porter's gone the opposite way. And he says, wait a minute, I need them. He says, no, you don't. You don't need the baggage any longer. I'll take that for you. And he walks away. And the guy that just gets little back on there, goes on there and enjoys the rest of his holiday. That's the metaphor. What you don't do is explain to a client or talk about it when you finish. What you do is leave their mind to take what they want. They'll extrapolate the message that they take from that. Because when I say that, you might get one message from it. Rich, you get another message. Fitting, you get another line. You all get the basic one, but you'll take it in a slightly different way. So that's why you never discuss it. Just let the mind take it, so can, and that'll help them to understand. Same as self-hypnosis said. When I do that, sometimes we do that as just by doing a little metaphor to give them to try each day. Something that just helps them mind to change things. It just helps them embed things in.
Yeah, that's absolutely great, isn't it? Yeah, like I love that metaphor. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Really good.
It's so simple as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. If I say to anybody about what we do, is keep it simple. I said earlier that sometimes people look too hard for something. That's the problem the client's done. That's why they're there to you, because they've been trying too hard. And there's a little trick you can do, or it's great with clients. I have it taught by an NLP. Have you ever seen a Chinese finger puzzle?
Yeah.
You know, there'd be paper puzzles, you put your fingers in the end.
Pulling.
Yeah, and what do people do? You pull and they're pulling. What's their face not doing it? They get so angry on it, their face screws up, it's like, I can't get my fingers out, it's stuck, and there's pressure. That's what you're talking about. It was on the policies do it with kids. So that's how I started doing this with kids. I had a lady brought a child in who was really angry all the time, and I was trying to get to show me what calmness looks like. So I said, give me an angry face, show me an angry face. Right, what does your mum's angry face look like? He had this rage. I went, what does your mum look like then? Was she just a wee bit bothered? She was doing all these faces. I went, what does your mum look like? She's calm. So I said to them, I'm like, try this. So we tried with everything, and the mum was doing that. She went, see, that's her. I went, right, mum, what did she say you look like when you're calm? And the lady did it, and her fingers popped out. And she went, I can't believe how simple that is. I said, that's all about life. The harder you make it, the more you'll struggle. The easier you make it, the better it'll be. And that wee puzzle just teaches people that is the simpler and the way you relax more helps everything that you do. So it's a simple thing you can get to anybody to do. Get them to relax first of all. And even when you go to any session, the first thing you do to anybody is get them just to chill and relax. Just change your tone, change your voice down to that pattern so they'll come down to you. And their tone will get that, and you'll see they're not so hurried anymore, they're not so angry. So when they explain things, you start to pick up the best bits out of it. So anything you do, yeah, is keep it simple. Any metaphor, keep it as simple as you can, as clear as you can, so that it's obvious what the message roughly is about, but just let them take it their way.
That's amazing. Thanks very much, Tony. And the name of your business is Changing Your Mind Limited, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Just
right.
for people that are listening on Spotify, because obviously people can see your background on YouTube. Would you like to just give your details of how people can contact you?
Yeah, exactly. They can get me at Change Your Mind Limited. So they get my website is there, or you can get me in an email to tonygordon@changeyourmindlimited.com. So if they do any of the two, and if they go into the website, you can just book a free call. So anywhere you go, you'll see everywhere it says about contact me. It just literally takes you to a booking system. You pick a date and time and just come through. You'll get a 30-minute free call. If I can help you in that 30 minutes, that's all it'll be. We don't need to do anything else. After 30 minutes, if you need more, that's something we'll discuss. Or like I said earlier, if I'm not the right person for you, I will find somebody who can.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Tony. Thanks very much. And I suppose
Very
because
positive
it's called
views.
NLP Upskill Your Life, can you give a little bit of advice to people that are listening of what you've learned? How if someone would say, how can I upskill my life? What would you say to them?
That's it. Is the one thing I say to anybody is you've got the resources on you to do anything. If you want to go and upskill your life or change your life in any way at all, do it. Try something that you've never done before. Try anything you haven't done before that you thought, I can't do that, and try it. Because you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Is it doesn't work right, but you've tried it. And you'll start to realize when you do that, you can face it. And that's why I call myself a growth mindset coach. The term comes from a Dr. Carol Dweck, who had this thing that people with growth mindset will find a way over something. I think every single person's got a growth mindset coach, growth mindset. And just having a coach or someone there that can guide them is a brilliant way to do it. So if people want to upskill themselves, listen to something like this, what you guys are doing, but take the actions off the back of it. Try something. If you give something as a suggestion, try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. You're no harm. Only thing you're going to waste a little bit of time. But if you don't do it, you will never know, and that's worse. There was a thing somebody said earlier, that I think I used an analogy in the last one, is someone who's sitting on their deathbed and they're allowed to look back on their life. So you can celebrate the things you did great. But how would you feel if you look back and say, yeah, that was good, but I never did this, I never did that, I never did that? Or would you rather look back and say, wow, I've had a fantastic life. So when it comes, it happens. It's going to happen to everybody, but at least I've done everything I could have done. You've no regrets. I'd say everybody don't have a regret about anything in life. Go and try it. Go and do something, anything at all, and that helps to start upskilling in life. Because as soon as you take that first step, you're already upskilling. You're skilling to something you've never done before. So just go and do it. And if anybody wants to learn this, the only thing about NLP is it's brilliant for actually self-worth. It's great for teaching you self-worth, about difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. Confidence is you can have your own abilities, you're confident in that. It's how you look outside, but your self-esteem inside is something a lot of people have difficulty working with. This can help you with that. So what you guys actually do is brilliant, but also remember, NLP is not all about people being coaches. It's also about helping to improve your own life. So by upskilling your life, yeah, go and do something about NLP. Try something online. There's plenty of things on the internet, first of all. Go and look at that on YouTube. Try something out, and if you like it, go and do it.
That's great, Tony. Thanks very much. Fintan, you want to say something there? Sorry about that.
Yeah. Sorry, Mark. Just when you mentioned self-esteem, a lot of people confuse self-esteem with self-worth. No. And they forget about the second part of self-esteem, which is, of course, self-efficacy. And what I love about NLP is that you can, through the use of NLP, find yourself in a situation where you can now do things that you thought you never could do before. Yeah. You know, and that's the beauty. That's the big thing I got from NLP myself. You know, is that not that I wasn't self-efficacious before that. You know, that I like one is talk the talk and the other is walk the walk. So sure, people can talk the talk. And while generally speaking, I could walk the walk, but there were aspects in my life where I never thought I could do, you know, these things.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. That's what I'm saying about people doing this. When I trained in mine, there's probably 4 or 5 of us who wanted to do it for coaching purposes. The rest of the group, another 14 in a row, were all doing it for the same reason, just to improve their own lives. But it's not only your own life, because you're improving that, and then you have the skills to help your family communicate better. What we were talking about earlier, how to communicate better with your children, how to communicate better with your partner, with your friends, colleagues at work. When you see signs, when you do this, you'll notice things with them you can help with. And that's an amazing thing you have. It's a brilliant gift that you can have, and you've got some that's, it can be this simple to help other people, but it's to do it so quickly. And that's the brilliant thing about it. You've done it, you said you learned it on the course and how you feel. The course is what, a week, and look how you feel well. That's the thing for anybody is, please, if you get any chance of doing it and you don't feel right at all, speak to someone that can do it, or go and find out how to do it yourself. Just take a step and move forward in your life. Don't sit back.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant advice, Tony. Thanks so much. Yeah, so listen, we really appreciate you coming on tonight to NLP Upskill Your Life podcast. So does anybody else want to ask a question to Tony before we let him go?
Yeah, have you got any upcoming projects or anything else you're working on, Tony?
Quite a few. Part of the thing, sorry, my camera's going to be funny. Part of the thing for me now is I'm working with groups and working with looking at males. I think because it's time of night. Working with males 40 to 55 I want to do, because they're the most prevalent ones in the UK of taking their own life. And I think, as we said earlier, part of the problem is they don't speak. I would love to work more with them. But what I realised when I started doing that was that why I keep looking for people like to help them is I'm going to start working with students as well, because I would rather get them ready for life skills so they don't become those people who are 40-odd-year-old that need their help. So that's the project I've got at the moment, is looking at how to get into universities or last year of high schools and start getting kids ready for the transition into university and how to take their life forward.
That's really cool.
Really good. Yeah, no, thanks so much, Tony, for being our second guest on the podcast.
Third.
Second guest.
Second,
Yeah. And for everybody listening, make sure you check out Tony's podcast as well. 2 podcasts. It's Break Free from Your Monkey Mind is the first one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the main one. It's the one more to do with emotional health and that, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one is called
Parental Diaries with Les and Tony.
Great stuff. Yeah. You know, this is brilliant. Thank you so much, Tony, for taking the time.
No, I appreciate it, and I love what you guys are doing, so please keep doing it.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, Tony.
No problem at all. Thank you.
So we're gonna finish off with a scale on lay. I think Rich is gonna give a metaphor scale on lay.
Yeah. So back in 1959, there was this British industrialist by the name of Henry Kramer, and he offered £50,000 at that time for people to be able to fly using the human body weight in an aircraft. And so that was £50,000 for that. Then there was £100,000 for everybody to go across the English Channel. So what everybody did was they took up, those people that took up the challenge, they were only managing to fly a few meters, and it would take about a year to design and develop a new plane. Then this other chap, he came along, and so it would take them a long time to reconstruct the plane, redevelop the plane, and look at all the faults of why their plane was failing so much. Then this chap came along called Paul McCready, and he solved the problem in a different way by using aluminium frames that were easily assembled and disassembled. So within hours of his plane failing, he was able to reconstruct that plane and make the improvements there. So that is today's scale on lay.
Whoa, great, Rich. That's brilliant.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Great. That's food for thought for everybody who's listening. Yeah. So thanks again, Tony, for coming on. And
no problem.
I might finish off with a quick empowering question for today's episode. I haven't actually put this one down, but I'll just take one off the top of my head. So think to yourself about what good things happened today and what you learned about what happened today, like even stuff that you're proud of or grateful about. And then from that, tomorrow, you can make tomorrow even better. You know you can, can't you? So that's great. So once again, thanks a million, Eb, for tuning in to NLP Upskill Your Life podcast with Rich Finton and myself and Tony, our guest for this evening. So again, if you have any questions for us you'd like to discuss in the podcast, send us a quick email called an NLP Upskill Your Life at hotmail.com. So until next time, take good care of yourselves, and thanks for listening.